Morning, fellow zombies. It's 4:48 in the morning, September 1st, on a Sunday, 2024, West Coast time. We were in Genesee, Roseman, California, hearing about part of the Southern California coastline being more and more affected, and the community at Rancho, Palos, Verdes, they're going to be forced to make a choice at this point that they're not leaving, but they're going to have to. If there are if the plans are not put in to try to at least stabilize the landscape, I'm afraid they're going to lose it all. They don't want to. They're pissed off at utilities. They're pissed off at people left and right. And they're scared as hell because they don't want to lose the homes that they've been living in for a hell of a long while to this thing. I don't blame them. But this is something that, if it can't be rectified, they're going to have to get the hell out. This has been ongoing for months. But the conditions have been getting worse and worse. The problem is with this, it's just terrifying to look at. People have noticed that there's a lot of cracking, a lot of warped streets, power lines bending. One of them happened to start a small fire that got taken care of, but it scared Edison to a point where they're shutting things down. In the Portuguese Bend area of Rancho Palos Verdes. And in that section, there is deformation of ground, continuing sliding because scientists are still measuring it, and it's still moving. The moisture in the bedrock and in the layers of rock that they have, it's gotten super saturated there. They could try getting the top portion of a slide possibly drained, but it's the underneath that seems to be moving a little bit more faster, they said, forcing more ground movement. And if there's going to be any emergency situations happening in there, they're going to be losing out. A long while ago, there was a lot of movement that got people's attention when one favorite cliffside chapel called the Wayfarer Chapel had been out there for decades. And they started having issues with the groundswell, and movement of it. It was really affecting things a great deal that scientists were not happy with any of it. Sorry. It's getting to a point where they're forcing an issue down to people's... they're not giving them any options at this point. Either they move out, or they're going to be part of a slide that's going to be going into the water. And it's going to be affecting more than just their little territory. One thing about slides is they have a tendency of moving everything else as well. Even the geologists would know about this one. But scientists kept thinking that there's a way of solving it. Well, let's hope that human engineering can actually solve it. 1 second here. Sometimes I wish I had studied more geology a long time ago. There was one map I ran into doing a Google search on some of the images. One of the maps that were showing the affected areas. And this still scares the hell out of me. But there's over about 150 people in the area. They're going to be more terrified, a little bit more than that. It's how much of that material is going to be coming down. What's the rate? Question is, will they be in time to do something about it before it actually starts? Once the process starts, there's no way to stop a landslide. Especially when the landslide has momentum. And you have tons of material coming down. What I'm more afraid of is beyond the map that they've got. And looking at the Google map of it, it scares the hell out of me because this area is going to be going downhill real damn fast. And surrounding communities may be affected if, it's a hell of an if to say, if it doesn't affect the other outlying areas. Not just one small area. I'm talking about chain reaction. I mean, it's fear-mongering, but, you know, Edison is pulling the plug. What I've learned, power controls water and sewage. At least in their area anyway. So, they're going to have to be dealing with porta potties situations, survival camping skills, at this mad skills. If they have generators, they're going to have to keep getting fuel for it. I mean, I know there are solar power generators out there, but they're going to be needing gas ones, and if they've already got power turned off, where are the nearby gas stations in the area that'll be supplying them, and will they be running out? And this is scary because I don't want to raise alarm on this damn thing, because that's going to be doing a Peter and the Wolf situation, and I'm not trying to do a Peter and the Wolf. What I'm trying to figure out is, with the housing community they have in the surrounding areas, if the bedrock is somewhat secured in the northern region, maybe they won't have it much, but there's still a little bit of a threat in the area. But it's the lower ones that are closer to the cliffside, those are the ones I'm worried about, because you still got a heavy concentration of them in there. And people use services to get in and out. I hadn't seen any restaurants. That's mostly residential. On the peninsula itself, it's all community. And it's terrifying to see geology at work, because it still scares me. It shouldn't be scaring me because I'm theoretically in a stable environment, but I'm bringing something that's also scaring the hell out of me. A lot of volcanic activity and earthquake activity happening surrounding at the rim of fire. If I had a geological map, well, I know that USGS has trackers on that one. They got quake maps all over the place. And it's unnerving. I know about the situations in Iceland. They still get the volcanic activity happening out there. So, yeah, it's unnerving on that end. But what gets to me sometimes is how unnerving it can be when I see certain quakes happening and major movements. 4 or 5s are a bit of movement. It's a consistent movement that worries me more. Some of the fault lines and some of the convergence and subduction zones. And we've got subduction zones, basically one plate trying to override another plate. And when there's movement, there's energy. One thing I didn't catch on in geology until I, got wind of it when we're studying the fault lines. I never realized that India is still trying to move northwards. Mountain regions keep raising higher and higher because there's shifting of the plate in that one. And I knew about the volcanic activities happening in Juneau, actually in Alaska. Denali Park had a small one. And there's still volcanic activity out there. I mean, there's a occasional hotspot just spews off whenever it wants. Global heating happening, changing the glaciers around like crazy up in Alaska. Ketchikan, over the past few years, have been experiencing it more and more. Not exactly geologic, but the slide is a slide, and therefore it's geology. But there's just melting of snow, ice, and stuff, and just flooding a town. And they're still trying to recover from that one. That wasn't bad enough. Try having certain ports of call, trying to tell people to not allow cruise ships to come in. The cruising community is still going nuts over that one. I'm just going over crazy regarding Earth movement. And it's still going to be surprising the hell out of me. One thing that did catch my attention over older newscasts that still linger around YouTube is there's a couple of hidden fault lines in the Palos Verdes area. Not on the peninsula itself, but just outside or close enough to it, where the energy of that would be affecting a lot of things. Yeah, it'll be scaring the living crap out of people left and right, if they're not terrified enough as it is. So it just makes me a little bit more rattled about how geology and how earthquakes can really drive us nuts a little bit. What was it last night around 9 o'clock or 9:30ish? They had a little aftershock out in Grapevine, 2.6. About 12 kilometers, almost 12 and a half down. Just enough just to alert the sensors. Not anybody else for that matter. But it still scares the hell out of people. So, looking at all this stuff kind of makes me either fascinated and terrified at the same damn time. And it should. It makes me more aware, makes me more alert and cautious. and trying to figure out if we're going to be surviving shortly, but I guess we are. As for Rancho, it's going to be up to them to decide whether or not they want to get the hell out of Dodge or not. They're going to have to make that decision of shutting things down and getting the hell out of there, or else. But it is going to be affecting landscape, and it's going to be affecting coastline left and right. I'm still thinking that the geologists are going to be studying more about this beyond what happens. Because if I understood geology a little bit and something about the slides, even if there is a slide in one particular area, down the road, if there's still enough liquid in there, it'll be affecting the rest of it. And you have one level, another level, and then whoosh. Every time I kept talking about the slides, it just made me a little bit more rattled. I'm an armchair rattling person here. But then looking at the landscapes, why shouldn't I be? Management decisions about how they want their communities taken care of. When one thing happens to one community, it's going to be affecting everybody down the road. I just don't see the pattern yet. And it scares the hell out of me when I start thinking about stuff like that, because I'm wondering what's in it next. I kept hearing gloom and doom from a lot of people online. They're worrying about a lot of things. Hell, if I was in Iceland, I'd be worried about the whole place. They have systems in Iceland to help them out with their situation. Jeez. Their tiny island, right off of Greenland, is right between two fault lines, pushing and shoving against each other. We've got volcanism happening in the area, and it's affecting a lot of places and things. And it just makes me more concerned. In one area of Iceland, actually in a lot of areas of Iceland, it's made up of volcanic rock, basically. Basaltic, gypsum, alevine. Major airport they've got to get the hell out of that island is Reykjavik. And they're lucky that some of the action is not happening there in the area, but they're feeling it. If I understood it correctly, that they were talking about in the other channels on YouTube, they have procedures in place that once there's a volcanic activity happening, the whole community is alerted, and then they go nuts. I don't blame them going nuts. If I had some kind of volcanic activity happening around here, we'd be going insane over it. But people want to see the wonders and natures of Iceland. It is a wondrous place. It's a tough tundra, but it still scares the hell out of people. Some people have tried to take advantage of the natural beauty of it. For a geologist, they'd have a field day over the place. But dealing with active volcanism, see, that's what scares the hell out of people. And when they start seeing things spewing up from the ground. They're wondering if they got any control over the damn thing. Except trying to find a place to run and hide, but sometimes you just can't hide as much. Especially on a tiny island of Iceland. It still makes me nervous as hell. It still makes me nervous as hell on this one. Surprises people on the East Coast when they actually have earthquakes. A 2 or 3 scares the hell out of them. We out here in California, we're so used to it, it's not even funny. We'll feel a little bit of a roller. We'll just wait for about 2 or 3 seconds. If it doesn't grow intensity, it's like, eh. But if it grows intensity, it's got our attention. It's got our attention. So naturally, I get worried. I get stressed. It's out of my control, out of my hands. I know I keep saying that. But when I start to plan on getting more emergency supplies in here just in case, I know I'm losing it. I know I'm losing it. Because right now, there's not a thing I can do concerning about the global except how to be aware. It's not that I'm going to be celebrating like crazy. It means I just got to get more prepared than I already am. Wait for money to come in and then try to get supplies as necessary and as fast as I can. Which I hardly have any. If a quake happens, well, we're dead. Depends on what kind of a major quake we're talking about here. According to the YouTube stuff I was watching regarding quake predictions or explanation of hidden fault lines happening, and if one particular line goes crazy, then everything else is going to hell in a handbasket worse than Northridge. I kept thinking to myself, there was nothing worse than Northridge except for Sylmar, but we didn't felt when Sylmar happened, there was barely enough communication around that time in 71 that they would actually try to explain it to people that there was going to be widespread damage on 71. But I'll tell you, when we had a Northridge quake, people as far as Las Vegas felt the damn shaker. Down in San Diego, well, up the coastline, they felt the shaker. So we're talking about a widespread area. When one hidden fault line decides to go nuts and just break out because of the stress, that really scares the daylights out of me at that point. And I would have to take stock of what I have here left. And when we do get a quake that massive and we happen to survive, everybody's going to have to be sharing a lot of resources with each other. That means food, water, and whatever we got. We have to be self-sufficient for a time. And if there's any place living, or actually standing, they're going to be raided like crazy. Case in point, guys. I'll show you my fear and phobia on this one. Okay, boys and girls, if you would kindly go to your web browsers, on your phones, on your tablets, on your computers. Go to Google Maps. Type out the Antelope Valley. Take another slug of coffee first. Got up about 3 o'clock, couldn't sleep, so I'm up. Got it up? Cool. So you see the wedge. See the wedge. You'll see the two converging fault lines. On the top portion was the one having from going from east to west, but on a slope. You'll see this arrowhead shape going on your map. San Andreas fault line stretching all the way up coastline, and the other one, I think they call it the Gorlick fault. They call it the sympathetic fault line at one time. And those are right in our area that will be shaken once we get any major movements happening. The minor movements that we've been having, we haven't had that much energy being spread around a bit, so we don't know if it's going to be adding to it or lessening it. A few years back, when Ridgecrest actually had theirs on July 1st, and they had about 7. Damn near destroyed the town, but they're still alive. They're still working on it. Still alive, thriving. Just a little bit more aware, a little bit more earthquake paranoid, we hope. They call it prepared these days, but I call it paranoid because you have to be paranoid out here regarding earthquakes. I'm sorry. You have to be. At least you can see the tornado. You can get weather forecast and wonder whether or not you're going to get a tornado down your butt or not, or a hurricane blasting at you. About a couple of years back, when we actually did have a hurricane coming through the Southland, everyone was freaking out. I'm like, no, we're okay. Because the kind of energy that they're talking about at this point over here, I can understand about the Southland being affected by it. But since we had colder waters takes the energy out. We have a oceanic flow, unless that damn thing changes on us, coming from Alaska southwards. So that stalls out any major storms we have, except for unstable weather. And if it's really unstable, then we'd be really getting the thunderstorms. But we did get some consistent rain, but not damaging rain. We did get flooding, but we didn't really get damaging flooding out here. But I was talking about geology a while ago. If it's super saturated enough in the hillsides and the mountains, and they get enough moisture in there, that's what I'm worried about. Slip sliding away. So here we go, boys and girls. In my little territory of Roseman, I am surrounded by a wide landscape here. So I'm not going to be affected by landslides, am I? Not a bad. R2 coming up.